Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about practicing with the auto ranging of your LPVO. Okay, so hopefully you bought a good LPVO that has auto ranging, and this is something that we're going to be talking about practicing. So my thoughts are that you're going to buy a scope, right? Yeah, particularly an LPVO that adds 1.5 pounds to the top of the gun, right, between scope and mount. I want more than just an aiming point and magnification. Okay, if that's all I'm going to get, I'll just use a red dot with a magnifier. Magnifier, I can easily remove it, and I got a much lighter gun. So if I'm committed to 1.5 pounds on top of the gun, okay, I want a lot of information for the price that I'm paying in terms of weight. Okay, so when you look in that scope, okay, first of all, get a first focal plane scope and try to get one that goes at least up to 8 magnification, ideally 10 magnification. The 10s tend to be a little bit more expensive. The 8s are pretty affordable. So yeah, it makes a difference because the target gets bigger, your reticle gets bigger. Um, a lot of times people focus on clarity and stuff like that. I don't get the targets blurry. As long as the target's big, it's easy for me to center my aiming point on it. Okay, so as far as a complex reticle, I want something that has auto ranging. Okay, now one of the ways that I practice, okay, I've done videos on this, is I will use these dolls. Okay, so with these type of dolls, you can practice auto ranging on basically on a 100-yard range. So I got a doll about this size, which is, I don't know, maybe about 10 inches tall. Okay, when I put this out there, and you don't need to shoot it, you just got to practice looking at it. Okay, or you can put the target off to the side, off to the side, and maybe shoot that. But if this is my man here, right? Basically, I got these lines here, so basically I can see that. First of all, that's the 300, 400, 500-yard line. Okay, so I can see that this guy matches up to this line over here. So he's going to be at 400 yards when I match him up like that. So a lot of times you can only see somebody from the belt to head. So that's why with this ACSS design from Primary Arms, if you can only see him from belt to head, you basically, there's this line here. You put the belt there, head there, and bang, this guy's at 400 yards. Okay, so over here, what you also need is some type of a bullet drop compensator or mill line. So whether you have a dedicated BDC or mill lines, they tend to follow each other pretty closely in 5.56 and 308 all the way up to 500 and even 600 yards. So either one will do, but the point is you need to have that stuff there. Okay, so the nice thing about the Primary Arms one is once you figure out this guy's at 400 yards, these lines here are also sized up to the width of his chest. Okay, so this line over here, which is going to be the 2 mil line, is going to match up to his chest. Okay, so again, that's something that you can practice looking at. If you go to the one below it, it's going to be too small, and usually the legs over here match up to 300 at 300. It's too wide. So 400 is the one that matches his chest. Now what I'll do is a lot of times I'll set the targets sideways like this. So when you put it sideways, right, or diagonally, that's not going to work out. But what you can do then, okay, is that you can say, okay, you can basically look at his head, because no matter how I'm looking at you, like this or like this, my head is roughly the same size. So I can put the head over the line over here, and I can see what is most proportional, right? Because if I put him on one of the lines down here, he's got a giant head, like he's got like a big lollipop head. So I can see that the 400-yard line is the one that's going to be the most proportional to his head. Okay, so even if I can't see across his shoulders, even if all I see is a head peeking up over something, if I can see that head, I can figure out on which line it is proportional. And that will give me a good indication of which line I should, what distance he's at. And the way this is set up, this is also my BDC. These are mill lines, right? Because I like using the Primary Arms, the mill grid ones. So the mill lines match up pretty good as a BDC as well. So I would be using, that would be at 300. I'd be using that point right there. at 400, 500, and 600. And then after that, we just got straight meal lines for measuring. Okay, so this is one way that you can practice using the range estimating that's in your reticle. Okay, now the other thing I will do, put this down for a second, is first of all, when I order a scope, right, that has auto ranging, before I even put it on the rifle, right, and zero it in, I will take the scope out of the box, and I will take it to a touristy area where I know that there's lots of people there, and they got cameras, and so people are used to, people are going to be looking through cameras and taking pictures. So I will, just with the scope by itself, I will go to a touristy area, and I will look at people, real live people, okay, at different distances, and see how they appear in the scope. All the way from whatever 50 yards all the way out to 1,000 yards, right? And I'll see what they look like in my scope. So that's another way. Usually I'll do this before I even put the scope on the rifle. A lot of times I will remove it if I know I'm going to be traveling to an area like that. I will remove it. I'll go do some work. I'll go practice auto ranging live people, right, moving around. And then when I come back, usually when I put it on there, it doesn't lose zero. So I'll take maybe 5-6 shots at 50 yards, 100 yards, and usually it doesn't take much work to get my zero back, all right, because it already has a zero when I remove it and I put it back. Right? Usually I have to make 1 or 2 click adjustments, but that's usually it. Okay, so we talked about so far 2 methods. One method with the 10 to 12 inch dowel. This is really good because if you only have, let's say, 100 yards in your backyard, right, you can practice with something like this, just looking through it. Okay, so you can practice with this out to 100 yards. Now we talked about, so that everybody can do that. You can or take the scope off the rifle and take it to a park or something, and you can practice out to 100 yards with a dowel, or go to a touristy area with lots of people, again with the scope removed from the rifle, and put it on actual people. And then the other way, and this, because the other 2 methods don't involve actual shooting. Okay, the third method involves actually shooting. So you're going to go to an area where you can shoot, either a gun range or just an area where you can shoot, whether your own property or somebody else's property, or if you live on a farm or you have access to a farm or whatever. And you get yourself a box about this size, right? I got the Chewy box here with the pet food. Okay, if you open this thing up, right, you open it up like this, you will notice, right, that this box, what size is it? Belt to head, width of my shoulders. Okay, so this is a good cheap practice target. Okay, and then you'll go to like Lowe's or Home Depot and get one of these 1x1 sticks. They're usually pretty cheap. Okay, you can basically, you want it somewhere between 5 and 6 feet tall. You cut it at an angle so that you can hammer this into the ground, right, into the dirt. And then what you will do is you can use a stapler or just a screw. You can run a screw here. Usually I just use a screw. I'll use a screw gun. I'll run a screw here, and now I have a target that I can actually shoot at. Okay, and what I'll do is a lot of times what I'll do is I'll either place this at some, go out to a field and just place this at unknown distances where I don't range estimate it. I just nail it somewhere. So that's one way to do it. Or the other way, and what you can do is you can keep moving this around if you want. But the other way to do this is put this in one spot and then move yourself around, right? So you move forward, you move back. So at different distances, you can come in at 200 yards, move back to 400 yards, come back to 300 yards, go back to, again, you don't know this, right? You're just moving back and forth, taking shots on this, but using the auto ranging. So this is basically belt to head, shoulders to shoulders. So using that box, belt to head, right? So we're using the top portion of this, or we're going across here on the shoulders. Okay, so that's that's 3 easy ways to practice the auto ranging. Okay, so this is a really important skill, right? This is the difference. This is what gives you the unfair advantage. Okay, so one of the things I tell people, right, because a lot of times I'm dealing with people or I'm working with people who have some shooting experience, but not a whole lot, right? So they've been shooting a little bit. They know how to shoot, but they don't get to shoot like every day like I do, you know. So they got a little bit of shoot. So I say, okay, so listen, you've got some shooting experience, okay? So let's say you're gonna have a duel, right? A pistol duel, right? Just a pistol duel with somebody to the death, okay? So you got a little bit of experience, and you're going to be up against somebody that has less experience than you, right? So you got some experience. You're going to duel somebody that has less experience, a lot less experience with you. Would you rather duel them 10 feet apart, or would you rather duel them 100 feet apart? Okay, so if you know you got more experience than the person that you're going to be dueling, okay, you want to capitalize on your experience, and you're going to want to duel them at the max distance that you think that you can hit them, and you know that they can't hit you. Okay, so that's, you know, that's fighting. Okay, that's strategizing. That's picking a fight that you know you can win. Okay, so what I said there as far as a pistol duel also applies to a rifle. So almost everybody that's done any research on AR-15s knows that you get an AR-15, use 5.56, you set a 50-yard zero, and you got the same point of aim at 200 yards. Okay, so zero distance to 200 yards. Every Joe Blow out there with an AR-15 can hit that. Okay, now what about 300 yards? What's the holdover at 300 yards? Okay. Now, if you've been watching my videos, right, and I've done lots of videos on this, you know that your holdover at 300 yards is about 10 inches high. So instead of putting the dot here, you're going to put it on the face so it drops into the chest. Okay, so some people might know that, but a lot of other people may not. Okay, so again, now you're getting a little bit more of an advantage, because you know something that a lot of people out there with AR-15s and with red dots don't know. Okay, but here's the thing: at 300 yards, even if they don't know any better, and they put the dot here, they can still get a hip shot. Okay, so 300 yards is not where I want to have my gunfight. Okay, how about 400 yards? Now 400 yards gets a little bit more interesting, because at 400 yards, okay, let's say they got a red dot. Now, in order to hit you, they got to put the dot over the head, right? They got to sit, and the dot's going to be big because the person's going to shrink down at 400 yards. So they got to take this dot and they got to put it over the target. Okay, so at 400 yards, most people aren't going to know that they got to put this over the head so they can drop the shots into the chest. And most people are not going to have a magnifier behind their red dot, so they're not even going to be able to see the target that well. So now you start at 400 yards, you got the advantage. If you got either a red dot with a magnifier, and you know your holdover, you know to put the dot over the head, or you got an LPVO, especially where you can auto range, and you know you're at 400 yards, and you got some magnification, and you can match this up to the chest. You've got an advantage at 400 yards. Now, how about 500 yards? Okay, 500 yards. What's the holdover with a red dot? Okay, so holdover at 500 yards with a red dot, right? You take the height of the man from belt to head, and that's your holdover, right? That's your holdover over the target. And that's really hard to do without a magnifier. Okay, I've done it. I've done videos where I'm shooting 500 yards red dot magnifier. Okay, I've practiced it. I know I can do it. Okay, most people wouldn't even think to take that shot. Most people aren't going to have a magnifier. Most people aren't going to be able to see anything at 500 yards, right? Especially something that doesn't want to be seen. Okay, so again, you've got an advantage, and you can. I've done videos where I'm hitting a man-sized target pretty consistently at 500 yards. So, having your fight, a gunfight over 500 yards, if you know that you're able to make those shots, gives you an advantage over somebody that can't make those shots. Okay, so that's how I like to think. Now, obviously, we're not talking about self-defense here. We're talking about SHTF, World War III, Apocalypse, Armageddon, that kind of stuff. Okay, so in that type of a situation, I wanna have this. If I know I can make shots at distance, that's where I want to have my gunfight. The last place I want to have my gunfight is inside my house, okay, where my kids are, right? Where most of these houses are made out of like sheetrock and wood, because in an SHTF situation, they're not going to come into your house, right? If they want this, what they're going to do is they're going to throw a firebomb into your house, and they're going to burn you out, or they're going to smoke you out, okay? So you can't just sit inside your house and wait for them to burn you out. You need to take that fight outside of your house, away from your family, okay? So just a couple of things for you guys to think about. But primarily in this video, I wanted to tell you guys that, first of all, if you're going to have a 1.5 pounds on top of the gun, okay, make sure it's got auto ranging. Make sure it's got something that you can use as a bullet drop compensator, okay? You know, if you're going to be carrying a 1.5 pounds on top of the gun, because otherwise, it's like, what's the point of having a 1.5 pounds on top of the gun, okay? So, and I gave you 3 ways of practicing it. You can either use a doll like this, like a 10-inch doll, which you can practice within 100 yards with something like this. You can take the scope off of the rifle, take it out to a touristy area where you got lots of people, lots of cameras, and look at people, right? And then for actual shooting, get a box, and if it's bigger than this, you can just cut it down, you know, same size across the shoulders, belt to head, okay? Get yourself whatever, one of these $3 sticks, okay? Hammer this into the ground, right? Use like whatever, like a 3-pound hammer, hammer this into the ground, screw gun, right there, right? 2 screws in this thing. You can use a washer. I'll put a washer on here. So use a drywall screw and a washer that'll hold this in place. And then what you can do is it's a lot less trouble to move yourself around rather than keep hammering that in and out of the ground. So that's what I will do. I will move myself back and forth, you know, to practice hitting this, hitting this target. Okay, so drop some comments below. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to y'all soon.
Hey, I wanted to show you guys some features of the auto ranging of this reticle. This is an excellent reticle because you got those outer lines that guide you to the center, and then you got that large outer horseshoe. But when you zoom in, right, first thing that's going to become really useful is the auto range. Right? So if those papers over there if that was like a man, right? If you can see right there, like I can match him up to that line, head to foot at the 5. So he would be at 500 yards. So if I was going to shoot him with a 5200 yard zero, I would basically center, like right there, that would be a headshot, right? That line, the 4th mil line. So you got 3, so the top of the spine is 300, then 400, then 500. So that second horizontal hash that I have in the center of the paper is what I would hold for a chest shot, right there. So this is an excellent feature. And then you got this grid where if you're shooting against the background, right, where you can spot the impacts. So if I saw that I'm holding there and I see that the impact is, let's say, on a dot like 2 mils over to the right, I would just transfer that to the target, right? So wherever I spot the impacts, that's my new aiming point. So this reticle from Primary Arms, I think it's called the M10, is really an excellent reticle. And you can zoom back, then you got a great CQB scope that guides you to the center. And it's first focal plane, so that the measurements, like I don't have to go to max magnification to measure. I can be at, any magnification. Like right now, I can measure that person right there at 500 yards and then transfer over there, boom, 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 because that gives me the wider field of view, right? If I need to be able to see what's going on down here at 200 yards while I'm shooting up there at 300 yards, I'm able to do that with the scope. I'm able to zoom back, and I can do both things. I can shoot at 300 yards, but observe below that at 200 yards.